First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. For real, you the only father that I ever knew.
One of the most memorable moments from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was when Will broke down in Uncle Phil's arms after his father reappeared, made promises, broke them, and then disappeared again. Will asked the famous question,
"How come you don't want me, man?"
Baby Boy depicted a young man named Jody who in his adult life struggled to grow out of adolescence and put away childish things. Then there's the classic Boys in the Hood, which contrasts the life of Trey, who has a father present, with his friends Ricky and Doughboy who don't. Their stories end very differently. Whether it's caused by an absentee father or growing up in an under-resourced neighborhood, the trauma is there and art that reflects it is profitable. But what is being done to help those boys and men pick up the pieces? Who is there to support those that are living this reality currently? The Whole Brother mission seeks to equip men to be whole in every area of life. Wholeness isn't perfection, but it is optimum health. We believe we can get there by focusing on our three core areas: the head, the heart, and the hands. The head is mental health. We have to get our minds right. To that end, we offer access to licensed professional counselors and therapists to our members, free of charge. The heart is emotional maturity. It's very hard to deal with the emotions of another if I haven't taken the time to process through my own. We also offer access to life coaches and mentors to our members, free of charge. The hands represent professional advancement. Life is always a bit easier when your bills are paid. We've created an online life skills program that helps our members think through practical steps to build entrepreneurship, pursue higher education, and financial literacy. We're always looking for partners to help us create resources that normalize the conversation around men pursuing serious self-assessment. This is all made possible through giving. We ask that you join us in our mission.
First of all, thank you for having me, and just a special shout out to everything that you're doing. Your efforts are nowhere near in vain, and you are the fabric of making sure our community can move forward positively. So first of all, I always tell people that the two most important words in the English language are the words thank you, and they're not said enough. And so I just want to say thank you to you and your organization for all the work that they do.
How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm feeling a little bit out of place because I'm normally steering the boat, but I feel myself waiting to see where you're going. So it's a little off, but I think we're good to go. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
You know, no problem. As the Saints say, let me drive the boat.
Hilarious.
Very important today. We're talking about your book. Not only are you a podcast host, you are an author, you are a mentor. Most importantly, you're an author. Whole Brother, Debunking the Myths That Break the Black Family. Why was this book important for you to write, and what made you feel called to put a pen to paper?
So for me, it was a series of experiences just from being a young man to being in college to then working in colleges after college and now doing doctoral work. I've seen so much as it relates specifically to Black men, different peers along the way, colleagues, and then students I had to supervise. It's some concerning stuff I've seen with us, and I don't think it gets addressed enough. So I felt the need to put some attention toward this, critique some things, but then offer some solutions as well. And I thought it was important to do it. I'm turning 27 in about a week or so. But I felt, yes,
Yay!
I felt it important to do it right now at this stage of life because most times the people that speak to the Black experience are Black professors who are much older and so on and so forth and a bit disconnected, I think some are. So I felt the need to address it right here and now and, hopefully connect to other millennials. Let's just clarify that, not Gen Z millennials.
Come on,
But I want
millennials.
Gen Z can buy the book too. I'm just saying I represent millennials.
No, I like that, and I like that the book one comes from a very informative place, but it is definitely not judgmental at all. It says, "Hey, here are some insights that you might be able to use. These are
hmm
things that I found through my own observations. This is that." So I love that, and I love the fact that it's good, kind of all the way through. If I could, the words at the beginning by Jessalyn Toller, she says this: "To be successful, we must have whole families. To have whole families, we must have whole men. This book is about that. This book is about better." And I love that. I love when we're thinking of better. It's not just that this book is about the perfect man. This book is about the prototype. This book is about being better than where we are now. And why is being the whole man, a whole man, the epitome of better for you?
Yeah. So I think it's important that it's highlighted that it's not about perfection because I know when some see whole brother, they think, oh, that means I got to be perfect. I'm not perfect. Yeah, nobody's perfect. That's not what's expected, but I do think we can set the bar higher than where we've set it. So when I first launched the Whole Brother Mission, we had to do like an explainer video saying, what we're about, what our goals are, and what a whole brother is. And I describe being whole as optimum health. It's not necessarily being perfect, but it's being at a point where you're equipped to steward what you're responsible for. So that's you as an individual, your children, and your spouse or girlfriend or whoever your significant other is. So I think there's a point that we need to get to that puts us in position for those other relationships and to best care for ourselves. But like I said before, in many cases, we might have set the bar low or we might be misunderstanding what it means to be a man or a father. Specifically, in jest in the book, I allude to the fact that for many of us, fatherhood is just protecting and providing. And I jokingly say that that's what beavers do. Beavers will build a dam and bring food back to their family. So as human men, we should set the bar higher than beavers and not just be looking at protecting and providing, but also how do we steward the emotions of our significant other, of our children. And if we haven't done the internal work of managing our own emotions, then how are we going to be in position to deal with the emotions of our loved ones?
Mm, that is good. That is real good. And you would use a couple of situations or a situation where there was a guy who was growing up, his father paid more attention to his sports career when it came time for that emotional bit, that kind of connection. That was something that wasn't super present. And it's something that I've noticed and it's something that I've experienced in my own life. But I think it's also something that a lot of people can relate to. You actually say in the book, a renewed perspective. Oops. No, I'm sorry. You actually say in the book, what weighs even more heavily on me is that the norm for us as Black men is to live and die without unpacking or understanding how we are personally affected by what our fathers did or did. Why was that important for you to highlight?
Yeah, I think that was important to highlight because I've seen time and time again situations like mine where guys' fathers were not in their life. And the go-to response is, but I'm good though. It's always, I'm good. And many times we don't take the time to really assess what his absence or his toxicity, the effect that it had on us. And I think that's because it's easier to just ignore it and we don't want to deal with those emotions. But it's important to deal with them because if we don't deal with them, that doesn't mean that they're not dealing with us. And sometimes if we're ignoring it, it is still playing out in different ways and affecting other people. So I think that ultimately, if we take the time to begin to address some of the things I mentioned here, I think that might help us get to a better point as a whole and then create a new norm. Once again, I'm not saying that do this and everything will be perfect, but what I'm proposing in the book is that we've kind of accepted a norm that I don't think is healthy in many ways. And it can be damaging to the people that come into contact with us. And we can be damaging to ourselves in terms of how we view fathering, how we view emotions and how we view masculinity.
You talk about the whole man. If you could kind of briefly go into that, what are some elements that you think make up a whole man?
Yeah. So I always say it's the head, the heart, and the hands. The head is mental health. The heart is emotional maturity. The hands are professional advancement. If you get to a level of strength in those three areas, I think life can be a bit smoother. It won't be perfect by any means, but I think those are important areas that might get neglected time and time again. I say that because I know that growing up as a black man, I heard black people talking about mental health, and I've heard things like black people don't have time to be depressed, or ideas that going to therapy is for crazy people or for white people. And I think those ideas are widespread. And I'll even use the example of when I was a dean in university and I had to deal with students who had infractions. A lot of times they were black student athletes. In many cases, because of the infraction, therapy was a recommendation. And a lot of times they were like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go because they're going to call me crazy. And there was this thought that it would be on their permanent record forever, like a scarlet letter or so to speak. So I think that if we put more attention toward dealing with our mental health and understanding that there are certain things that we accept as normal that should be treated or addressed, that'll put us in a better place to then deal with other people. In addition to that, like I said, the heart is emotional maturity. And for us as men, we're all oftentimes thinking that to be a man is to be stoic, to be abrasive, to be violent, to be loud, to be strong all the time. And when you have that narrow view of manhood, that only allows you to express one area of emotion, and that's anger. But there's a whole spectrum of emotion that we all experience. And I just let the cat out of the bag that men are very emotional too. It's just that we oftentimes don't know how to manage it or express it, and we're only comfortable expressing anger. So that emotional piece is important to deal with, I think, before and trying to engage with others on a deep level, especially when it comes to dating or a relationship. And I can go even further to say that oftentimes what women report is being in relationships with men and they feel like they're talking to a brick wall, which is so fitting as you sit in front of a brick wall. But it's like I've heard women describe it as, he has a wall up. And I understand that because many of us shut off our emotions, but we still want to engage. But that's not healthy for intimate relationships. And then lastly is the professional advancement piece. I don't want to sound like I'm so focused on the inside that I ignore very practical things. So yes, emotions and mental health are important, but also having resources is important too. You got to have something in your hand, something in your pocket, something in your account. And many of us, we get the idea of making money, but I also think that I want to push it further and push the idea of financial literacy and ownership, not just making money to get by or to flash as many do in music videos, but having a more strategic plan on generational wealth so that you can create a new environment for your children when you bring them into the world. So I think those are three areas that could shift manhood in a positive direction if we begin to deal with them in a new way.
I think that's good. That was good.
Hey, what's up, Malik? Man, thanks for this timeless piece. It's so inspirational, it's transformational, and everyone deserves to have a copy of this book in their hands, of Whole Brother, Debunking the Myths That Break the Black Family. This book has reminded me of where I was, where I am, and where I'm going, and seeking healing in all areas of life to be whole, and especially as a man. Listen, if you already have this book, or if you don't have it, listen, get this in your hands now and think about who you can gift this book to. It's like that. Thanks, bro. Appreciate you, man.
I love that we talked kind of about identity, because I think, just like you had mentioned, people think black manhood in general looks one way, and that's kind of to get all deep, but that's pretty much what people are protesting about, kind of. in a sense. Of course, there's racism, historical injustice, yes, but it's also the fact that, hey, I'm black, but don't put a stereotype on me. Don't view me a certain way. Call me the angry black man narrative. Like, I'm a person at the end of the day. That's important. I like that. You wrote in there another piece, because you have some, I love how you write and just the words and the way that you put things together. You put, a renewed perspective on black male identity is needed, not only for black men, but also for those who have a vested interest in us, including sons and mentors. What is it about the black male identity that you would like to shift personally?
I think there's so much that I could say about that. And as the book is aptly written, Debunking the Myths to Break the Black Family, several of the subsequent chapters are addressing myths as it relates to masculinity, things that we believe that we shouldn't believe about being a man. So I'll just throw a few of them out there. And I mentioned earlier a newfound view on emotion and how we manage that. But another aspect, I think, is one of the chapters is fear equals respect. And that lends itself to this idea that many of us think that intimidating people is the way to gain respect. And we focus more on the exterior, looking intimidating, sounding intimidating, so on and so forth, to then garner respect. But I kind of flip that on its head and say, it's not the external that you should use to gain the respect of others, but the internal work of dealing with your emotions, your character, and your morals that then garner you respect. And that takes a lot more work than just looking tough. So I think we have to really think about some of the things that we've accepted as norms and realize this isn't really serving me. And what may have worked for a certain period of time, being the tough guy in one age, one phase of life in one neighborhood, as you get older and move into different environments, that might not work anymore. So that is another example of an aspect of manhood that may be normal for many of us, but really isn't healthy or helpful.
I think that's good. And I like that you talk also about the different types of fathers or the different type of experiences that males do have. And one in particular, you talked about women in general, single mothers serving as fathers, or creating this sort of just expectation that doesn't need to be there. Why, you detailed in the book, but why do you feel like that's a negative or can be a dangerous thing for men?
Yeah, so I addressed 4 different types of fathers early in the book, and one of them actually is the single mother functioning as a father. And I highlight that to say that it can be an unhealthy balance for both the son and the mom. For the mom, it's an unhealthy balance because she's forced to play 2 roles that she's not equipped to play. And it's not to say that she can't do a bang-up job, but it can be overwhelming at times. I'm of the persuasion that household should have 2 parents and both contribute something to the development of the child, half and half. But if one half is gone, we can't just pretend like that's no big deal. It throws everything out of whack. The child is missing half of another person that should be contributing to them, but then the other parent is left to take 100% of the responsibility when they're only supposed to take 50. So oftentimes we know that Black women are in that position as a single mom, having to play both a mother and a father. And though many of them are very successful at that, they also lose themselves in the process because they're wearing hats that they shouldn't have to wear. And some of the implications as far as relationships is, one aspect is if a young man is being raised solely by his mother, and this might be stepping on some toes here, but the young man is being raised by his mother exclusively. This is not to take away that she can't raise him to be a strong man, but at the same time, he may borrow and begin to adopt a lot of her attitudes and approaches to certain situations because that's all that he sees. And what works for mom and how she interacts with people may not be ideal for her young boy or man as he interacts with people. It might cause them to view him a certain way. Titles of feminine and gay are thrown out there. And I think that's something that we don't think about enough is if dad's not there to demonstrate a particular approach on how to interact with people, he might just end up picking up what mom is demonstrating. And that's not all bad, but these are some of the implications that I've seen play out time and time again And I'm hoping to put words to things that some people may be struggling with or noticing, but not really sure how to explain it.
For guys who don't grow up in the house with a parent, with a father, who
Mhm.
can they look to? And I know you talked about mostly like your brother played a lot of role in your life in terms of influence as a father figure
Yeah.
raising you. Who can men turn to if they don't have a father in their life, or even women? Even though this
Yeah.
is about the old brother.
hmm Yeah. So I think that it's really important to reach out and get what you need for you to become who you want to become. And if your father isn't there, I don't think the story should end there. It's important to try to get what's needed to develop into manhood. And mom can do a lot of that, but I do think it's important to be strategic and have trusted men in your life. And if you don't have that, to intentionally seek that out. And that takes a level of humbleness, because I think this is another myth that a lot of us believe that manhood is a natural instinct. So that because I'm born male, because I have a penis, I know how to be a man. Duh. It's just already there. And that's not true. And
At
manhood
all.
is taught.
At
Yeah.
all.
Let it be known. And, manhood is taught, whether directly or indirectly. So many of us have watched figures online and in music videos, specifically hip hop, because, black men love rap. But a lot of us, end up borrowing from the images of men that we see in the media and molding ourselves after them. And that's indirect. That's more being caught than taught. And I think rather than just molding yourself after what you see, people that don't necessarily have a vested interest in you, specifically seek out someone to be that example for you and going about it that way. So rather than just passively picking up what this rapper did or this musician did, seeking out a mentor or a father figure to pour into you in that way. And it's okay if it's a transactional relationship. I think it's important to, and if it develops to something beyond that, then that's great. But it's important to have a model of manhood that is healthy. So to seek that out and help you develop into how you fit into manhood, your version of it.
I think mentors are so important when it comes to our experience, and I can hear it a lot in your voice. I think maybe a lot of people respond, how does he know so much? Wisdom is something in the Bible that tells us that it's something that God favors, and I think seeking information, seeking experiences, seeking mentorship from people that have been there before, that have been able to experience some life, can offer a lot of insight and just make the human experience and navigating it like that much more easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think it's really important to have some type of model, because the thing is, some might say I don't need a mentor, but the reality is you're learning and picking up something from somebody. So I'm saying be strategic about it and be intentional about it. Don't just be out here saying I don't believe in mentors, but you dress like this guy from TV and you do your hair like this rapper, and these are things that we don't consider. You're being mentored directly or indirectly. And I'm saying be mentored directly and choose someone who has not just financial success, but good character.
That's good. It's an element of humbleness that's required. You said in your book that black male pride can sometimes be on steroids. What do you feel like is a dangerous thing? I saw that and I was like, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's not to say that other people don't have pride, but once again, I'm speaking about, the black male experience. So I'm a black male. The majority of my peers are black men and women. And they would agree that, and I think once again, it goes back to this hyper masculine, aura that we're taught to have. And it's an aura that once again assumes ability and strength at all points, even if there's evidence to the contrary. It's not very rational. It's just this bold, arrogant, bravado that many of us think is manhood. I don't think that is the case though. Confidence is important. It's beneficial, but I think there's a difference between, overestimating one's abilities and being confident. And I think many of us fall in the category of overestimating our abilities And then it shows in the work that we produce and the relationships that we have. And I think in addition to that, many of us probably would grade ourselves an A at manhood and who we are as an individual. But you always need to look at the people that you're connected to as well. So what would the women of your past say about you? Or what would your son say about you? Those are questions we would need to ask too, not just live in this utopia where I'm just this strong, strapping man and I have this high view of myself, but what impact am I having on those that come into contact with me? That's a question we need to ask as well.
That's important.
I just got this book. It's called Whole Brother, Debunking Myths That Break the Black Family. It's available on Amazon. I got the ebook. I like this book because the author talks about the different stereotypes of black men that are within the community, and he shines a light on how black men specifically are affected physically and emotionally, and how this trauma can end up sabotaging the black family, and just how we'll have these different issues if those things aren't addressed. So he offers really good ideas and insight, and I think it's worth the read. So check it out and let me know what you think.
If there's one thing, one nugget that you would want people to walk away with from reading this book, what would it be?
Man, it is hard to reduce it to one. I would say if just one, I would say that what has been okay for so long shouldn't have been. And that stretches to a lot of different areas, to how we approach romantic relationships, the emotional distance that we keep up, the quickness that we cut people off without having the maturity to work through differences. The idea that women are emotional and men are logical. There's different things that I can go on to list that we've accepted. It's just the way it is. And I think the reality is we need to do a complete overhaul on manhood and masculinity and relationships and identity. Most of it, I think we got to throw out because so much of it was not well thought through, not chosen at an optimum point. Because a lot of this stuff that we pick up as it relates to masculinity, we picked up at a young age, and then it just becomes our norm. And then when we're grown, we just continue what we've been doing. But I think now that we're grown, let's stop and say, hey, this doesn't serve me. There's no reason to come off intimidating. There's no reason to have the attention on me. And in addition to that, I'll say this, and I feel like I might get a big amen from you, is that we have a big emphasis on being woke right now, and being aware of injustice and being pro-black and so on and so forth. And while I agree with that, I think it's really not possible to be woke and pro your community if you have a trail of broken black people behind you, whether it be a broken son or broken exes who you just came in and had a negative impact on their lives. And I know some guys will hear that and think I'm just pandering to women to get their applause. But the reality is the evidence is there, the evidence is there that we need to do better, many of us relationally. If you just look at the music, how many songs has Mary J. Blige and Keisha Cole and K. Michelle written about the stuff that they go through, you know? And while we like the tune, art reflects life. That many of us like the idea of Black love, but don't know what it takes to get there, and end up hurting people along the way, and they become casualties of us just figuring it out. So this is a long way to answer your question, but I think this is a recommendation, a challenge for us men to figure some of these things out as an individual, become the whole version of yourself, and then go back out and start being a positive impact on those in your life. And if you already are married, if you already have a child and you recognize you need to make some changes, that can be done too. Just start here with that conversation. But once again, it goes back to the humbleness of recognizing that I'm not killing it on all cylinders at 100%. There are some ways that I could be better.
Real. You got to look at your own fruit. You got to look at your own fruit.
Facts.
I am excited for people to read this book. I am grateful that you wrote this book, because the family element, I think, has been misconstrued for so long. And we've kind of taken the value away from it as a society. And I think it's important. And I know a lot of people do as well. So I'm excited for people to hear this book. I'm excited for people to read this book, hear this interview, but also to read this book. And I thank you for dropping gems and sharing knowledge with us.
Thank you for sitting down with me. Thank you for reading. And for those that are interested, the book is available on Amazon, and Kindle and paperback form. And if you're interested in getting a signed copy, I can write a personal note to you. You can get it off of the Whole Brother Mission website. That's whole, WHOLE, brothermission.com. You can get a signed copy from there. And like I said, it's available on Amazon as well.
Okay. Perfect.
Hello, my name is Daniel Dunson, and this is my son Isaac. And I want to congratulate Malik Blade for publishing his first book, Whole Brother, Debunking the Myths That Break the Black Family. It's become one of my favorite books. As you can tell, me and my son, we're on the front cover. So how this picture came about, one day me and my wife, we took our son to the barbershop, and he wouldn't sit still. And so I had to get into the chair for him to sit still. And it made me think back on the times that I need to be there for my son. It's important that as a man, as a black father, that I am in my son's life and that I'm whole to be in his life. And this is a blueprint to becoming whole. It talks about depression, the mental health aspects of being a black man. And so I just want to congratulate Malik on doing this book. This is a blueprint. This is my favorite book now. And we both say congratulations and thank you for putting us on the book, man.
Oh, yes!
One of the things, Malik, that I heard recently is a brother told me, an incredibly self-aware statement. He said, listen, man, I just don't want shit to get worse. He said, getting better takes too much work. So I'm good. And it was heartbreaking on a number of levels because of the clarity of the statement that he was making. He was not confused about the work that it was going to require him to be in a place of wholeness. He literally was saying that I would rather be this broken man than go through the pain that it is going to take for me to be whole. And I think that's a reality that we also have to acknowledge, that we've got to encourage each other as brothers and sisters to understand that we don't even know how good it can be on the other side. We have no idea about how amazing life can be when our traumas are not controlling us. And frankly, with traditional, I think so much of it is, and I'd love to hear from some of my traditional therapists, is that so much therapy is about coping, not about thriving. And so for Black people who have been coping forever anyway, why am I going to bare myself naked to cope? And I applaud those within the industry that understand that coping is a mechanism that is a bridge to thriving. And so it doesn't mean that we don't need coping mechanisms. Sometimes that saves us. But why save us to survive versus saving us to be able to live a life that is abundantly prosperous? And I don't mean that from a capital expense perspective. I do from a perspective of being able to walk in the fullness of who we are, in a sense of power that is having the freedom to imagine and to manifest every reason for which I was put on earth. And that is what I actually believe both behavioral health and therapy has helped me with. It is, how do I remove all of the things that are attempting to prevent me from getting to the space where I am fully walking in the reason for which I was put on this earth. And so I'm so thankful, Malik, for the opportunity to have the conversation. Thank you so much for writing this book. Let people know again where they can reach you, and we know we can get Whole Brother: Debunking the Myths That Break the Black Family on Amazon. But where else can they see some of you all's content and information?
Yeah, so our website is wholebrothermission.com. That's WHOLE brothermission.com. And you can get, if you want a signed copy with a note, personal note, you can get that on the website as well. Amazon wouldn't have that. It's also available in Kindle. And if you're interested in seeking therapy for yourself, we're open and available. Just contact us on the website through the Get Help tab. In addition to that, with all that's going on with Ahmaud and George and Breonna, there's this emphasis on supporting Black orgs. So we do the work that we do with the emphasis on building up the Black community, but also that takes funding and support. So I would encourage you, if you're available, if you're in a position to do so, support us at wholebrothermission.com/donate.
That's awesome. And I want to talk to you further about some of the stuff that we're doing. Men Thrive is not doing therapy because we don't have therapists that are providing that therapy. But we are attempting to create a community where we're looking at behavioral health and behavioral health tools through the specific lens of Black men. So we're developing guided meditations. If you go to menthrive.com now, there are several guided meditations that you can have access to, as well as a podcast that is less about behavioral health heavy and more about how are we chronicling the stories and the voices of men who are attempting to live lives where they're thriving versus surviving. So let's celebrate as many of those organizations as possible.